Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives. Apologies in advance if I sound weird in this video. I threw my voice out yesterday. I'm not going to say how you don't want to know the story. My point is I'm still kind of recovering from that, so my voice is going to be sounding a little off in this video. So, again, just a heads up. But anyway, today we are going to be continuing our discussion on the Poison X storyline as we take a look at X-Men Blue number 21. So, last time on Poison X, Corsair Summers, the father of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, and the leader of an intergalactic group of space pirates known as the Starjammers, was captured by a group of bounty hunters led by a supervillain by the name of Killer Thrill, who, yeah, by the way, I kind of got things about her powers wrong last time. While she is a psychic whose powers are boosted by adrenaline, they only activate when she is pumped up, so to speak. So I kind of got that wrong last time, so whatever. Basically, Killer Thrill and her goons wound up capturing them for the sake of selling them to the highest bidder. And so, since Scott was talking with his father at the time that they were captured, the X-Men are aware that Corsair was kidnapped, so they want him on a rescue mission. However, Killer Thrill and her men actually wound up getting a little bit of an advantage at the time, as when they captured the Starjammers, Scott saw that they were all bonded with symbiotes, and since the X-Men don't really have experience with symbiotes, they realized they needed a bit of extra help. And as such, they wound up recruiting Venom to join their cause, and so the collective group wound up going to a set of coordinates that Corsair managed to give Scott before he was captured. Ultimately, the only lead that Venom and the X-Men find are the Starjammer ship, plus one member of the Starjammers that managed to survive, this robotic bug thing whose name I do not remember. But basically, the bug did alert them that, yeah, the Starjammers are fine, they're still alive, and yeah, they're going to be sold, and with Venom hearing about how the symbiotes are used as biological weapons, well, he and the symbiote realize, okay, they do have some stake in wanting to fix this, and so the teams decide to go off and gather information as they hit the streets of this alien world and try to learn whatever they can about Killer Thrill and her goons. Unfortunately, the first stop they make, which is a bar, as they're asking before they can actually gather information, they end up getting ambushed by Killer Thrill's men, who have heard tell that that the X-Men have been looking for them, and well, that's where we're picking up today. Hold on one sec. Sorry, had to close the curtains. But yeah, Killer Thrill's men managed to ambush the Venom and X-Men at the bar, and that's where today's issue begins. As well, the brawl is on as Killer Thrill's men and the X-Men end up duking it out right there in the bar, and it's basically just your standard bar brawl: mayhem, carnage, things being thrown all over the place, and add on the superpowers of the people involved. It's just all over the map, and sadly, no one's really getting an advantage over the other. However, as the battle goes on, things kind of turn in the favor of Killer Thrill's men, as one of them manages to stab Scott through his chest with some of their tentacles. And while the X-Men are able to throw the guy off and make a getaway, unfortunately Scott is still bleeding out. Thankfully, as the X-Men leave the bar, Venom stays behind to cover them as he ends up webbing up the entrance, which little funny thing, I love how his webbing is black. I don't know why, I love it when Venom's webbing is black. It just kind of helps make it look like it's more symbiote tendrils. But as the X-Men make the retreat, Venom doesn't follow after them because, well, he's got his own blood pumping, and so he's pretty much says the next guy who makes it out of the bar, he's just gonna beat the shit out of. However, he soon finds a new target for his aggression, because after all, how did Killer Thrill's men know that the X-Men were looking for them? Well, remember last issue with that squirmy guy I told you about that Venom yelled at, and who was apparently following the X-Men? Yeah, it turns out he ratted them out. He was following them for the purposes of figuring out what they were up to, and then when he got what he wanted, he was the one that let it slip to Killer Thrill's men. And when Venom is looking around the outside of the bar, he sees him off to the side, and so Venom realizes, okay, you know something. As such, while the guy tries to make a getaway, Venom ends up chasing after him, manages to grab him, and well, as Jean gets further and further away, her whole intergalactic translator thing, her intergalactic psychic translator starts wearing off. So as the guy's talking, some bits of his dialogue start shifting into his native alien language. So it's very clear that that Venom won't be able to understand for very long. But that just makes Venom even more determined, as he pretty much tells them, look, it's clear that Marvel Girl's intergalactic translator, whatchamacallit, is going to wear off soon. So I want you to tell me what you want to know. What I want to know, because trust me, I can be very persuasive. As such, back with the X-Men, they're trying to find a place to, well, lay low. After all, Cyclops is bleeding out, and they really have nowhere else they can be, and they're on an alien world. Now, hospitality is going to be a little hard for them to come by. As such, they do manage to hunker down in a tent where apparently some guy is selling rugs, and Jean's able to use her psychic powers to convince the guy to just leave. But and while she's able to use her powers to keep Scott from completely bleeding out, well, it's a temporary solution at best. And on top of that, they still don't have any leads where Corsair and the Starjammers are. However, thankfully, Venom is able to catch up to them because, well, they're a bunch of humans on an alien world. They kind of stick out like sore thumbs. But which unfortunately means that the bad guys might be able to track them as well. So Venom says they need to go on the move. Thankfully, after Venom had his little talk with the guy outside the bar, he managed to gather information on where the X-Men can start looking. While he doesn't know exactly where the Starjammers are, he does have a lead on where's Killer Thrill and her men got their symbiotes. And it leads them, and remember that hunter guy we saw at the beginning of the last issue who managed to kidnap that family of symbiotes, it's clear that those are the symbiotes that Killer Thrill and her men have. Well, Venom knows where he is, and we learned his name, and we learned that this guy's name is actually Hazemancer, and he's, of course, an intergalactic arms dealer. And yes, he has a base here. He has a base here somewhere. As such, Scott is still very much determined to go and find his father, and while Jean tells him that he needs to rest, well, Scott's very much determined to go after them, especially since, well, as I said in the last video, the X-Men that we're meeting here are time-displaced versions of the younger X-Men, which means at some point in the future, we don't know when, they are going to be sent back to their proper times and places, and odds are their memories of the present day are going to disappear, because after all, if they're being put back in their proper places, they can't have future knowledge, otherwise it could disrupt the timeline. So Scott knows at some point he's going to go back to the past, and he's going to forget all this, so he wants to spend as much time with his father as he can, and which I actually kind of understand. I kind of like that. Knowing that at some point you're going to lose all memories of people you care about, it just kind of makes you treasure the time you have with them more. So, I dig that. It's nice. It's kind of actually pretty sweet. As such, Scott's not taking no for an answer, so Venom and the X-Men go on the move. In the meantime, I'm just only mentioning this for the sake of plot. Back with Corsair and Killer Thrill, well, Killer Thrill's getting her rocks off by torturing Corsair and his girlfriend Hepzibah. And yeah, she goes on to, and pretty much, yeah, this is literally just to pump herself up, and just explaining that she's not doing this for information, she just does it for kicks. However, eventually this torture session comes to an end, as one of her men comes in and lets them know that someone has actually made a bid on Corsair and the Starjammers, specifically an alien race known as the Brood. If you don't know what they are, well, I think they're basically these race of bug aliens that operate on a hive mind and grow, and basically, if you kill one, they come back stronger, so that whatever killed them before won't work again, blah, blah, blah. My point is this. Basically, they made a bid for Corsair and Co., so Killer Thrill stops torturing them and tells her second command to call the rest of her men back, because shore leave's over, they gotta get going. But anyway, back with Venom and X-Men, they managed to make it to Hazemancer's base, and Venom says that they just need to do a full frontal assault. Hit hard, hit fast. Let him just basically get him before he has a chance to even prepare himself. They don't want to kill him, they want to keep him alive just enough so they can gather information on Killer Thrill and Co. Basically don't kill him, but make him wish he was dead, so to speak. As such, we then cut back at Hazemancer inside his base as we see him in the middle of making a sale, and we see exactly what the arms that he's selling are. More symbiotes, and basically as he's talking to his buyer, we learn a bit of exposition about how he typically goes about selling symbiotes. What he does is basically he captures them like he did with the family of symbiotes in the last issue, and then he basically induces a chemical into the symbiotes that makes them more aggressive, while also making them more docile in the bonding process, so they don't run away when someone tries to fuse with one. So basically, in that way, they're just turned into the perfect weapon. After all, a symbiote already naturally improves the physical strength, speed, and stamina of whoever is bonded with one. So to have a symbiote that can do that, and pretty much can boost aggression so that you're even more pumped up, while also being docile enough so that it won't run away. That just basically makes it sound like a perfect basically just makes it sound perfect. However, as Hazemancer continues doing his sale, that's when Venom jumps in and starts disrupting everything. And while of course the buyer is freaking out like, "Oh my god, one of your symbiotes escaped," Hazemancer confirms no, it's not one of his, though apparently he is familiar with the Venom symbiote. However, before Venom himself can get more information, the X-Men burst in and start fighting. Only when they realize that Hazemancer is selling symbiotes, they ultimately realize this assault now is a secondary objective: get Hazemancer and free the symbiotes. From there, it turns into an all-out brawl as Venom and the X-Men end up duking it out with Hazemancer's security drones, and the buyer who wants to get in on the fight and even tries grabbing a blaster and starts shooting at them. But as he does this, he accidentally hits Angel as he's flying around, and Angel is blasted into one of the containers containing a handful of symbiotes. Unfortunate, as such, Hazemancer ends up turning his complete attention to Venom as he pulls out a sonic blaster and manages to use it to incapacitate Venom and throw him to the ground. Unfortunately for Hazemancer, he really should have been paying attention to what was going on with the X-Men, because, well, that canister of symbiotes, well, once the symbiotes realize they're free, they all just make a run for it. And, well, this group of symbiotes start realizing that there is a group of viable hosts right there for the picking. And so they all start as the X-Men are still trying to get themselves to get oriented during the fight, they start feeling the slimy, gooey tendrils attached to them. And before the X-Men can even process it, well, the last thing we see in the comic are the X-Men all venomized as they are now bonded with their own symbiotes. So that's fun. But okay, so yeah, what are my thoughts on this issue? Well, it's fun. It's fun. It's action oriented. If the annual issue we looked at on Thursday was the thing to help you get introduced to the plot, well then this is the one. Well then this is where everything then today's issue is just where they keep the action going. The annual issue is the one that got all the plot details out there and let us know what was going on. Got enough exposition so that we could understand the stakes of the story and how everyone is affected by it. But today's issue is really just action. And it's not bad action. It's actually good action. And basically, how the story goes along, it does still manage to keep all the pace going and make you invested in what's going on, because right from the get-go, it's clear that the X-Men only know so much, and to make matters worse, the bad guys are onto them, so that makes what their mission even more of a high priority, because since the bad guys are aware, hey, these people are coming to rescue our bounty, we need to take care of them, or at the very least get this guy out of here, it kind of adds another higher bit of tension, not helped by the fact that during said brawl, we saw Cyclops get impaled through the chest by one of the pirates. So ultimately, there is still kind of that issue of trying to. So basically, that adds an even bigger layer of attention to the whole fray. As not only are they now trying to figure out where Killer Thrill and her crew are, but at the same time, they also need to figure out how to do it before Scott ends up bleeding out. So there's that tension. In the meantime, on top of that, what I do like is that we still do get some more plot progression through the story, because ultimately, while the whole bar brawl was a bust, that alliteration's fun. Basically, what makes it ultimately, they are still able to gather information in the form of Venom, as yeah, you do end up seeing what Venom will end up doing to the guy, and I'm not going to say exactly what it was, but let me just say it wasn't pretty. But from that interrogation, Venom was able to gather information on where Killer Thrill and her crew got their symbiotes, and from them they can ultimately use that information. And basically, if they can figure out who supplied them, then they can probably figure out who they are. I kind of like that. It's a nice little. I kind of like that. It's basically just using whatever leads they can. And well, since we saw Hazemancer from the beginning and know that he's kind of an SOB with how he captures symbiotes and then just turns them into things he can sell. Yeah, basically it's a guy. Basically, you kind of want to take him down. And I will give credit where it's due. He does kind of look pretty cool, and I do like how he somehow has an Australian accent. Again, it's weird, but I dig it. I'm fine. I dig it. It's fun. It's fun, and again, kind of going back to Killer Thrill and Co. I do again, it continues adding more to the tension of how the X-Men needing to find them, because now Killer Thrill does actually have a bid for the Starjammers, and admits that she's going to be heading out as soon as she can. So again, that adds another bit of tension. But of course, the big thing that made me go, oh, this is going to be fun, was the finale of the comic, when the X-Men wound up duking out in Hazemancer's base, and then in the middle of the fight, wound up bonding with their own symbiotes. Which, let me see if I can get that, if I can find the page where it happens, because, yeah, it's actually a pretty cool page. Yeah. I love this. These are the Venomized X-Men, and look at them. It's fucking cool. I love the designs for each of them, and because basically, one of the thrills when seeing a superhero in the Marvel Universe get venomized, so to speak, is when you see motifs from their original costumes get integrated into their venomized form. And likewise, what we see with the X-Men here, it's honestly really cool to see how the symbiotes augment their abilities. I like that, like we saw with Cyclops, and his visor is, instead of having a regular visor, he now has a red X over his eyes that can shoot lasers. I love how you can see parts of his costume integrated into it. I love the way they made Jean Grey look. I love how you can see the black gooey skin integrated into Iceman's, well, ice. I love how Angel's wings are now kind of like big demonic ones. And I love how Beast in his symbiote form actually looks like a beast, which, again, people are aware of the whole blue beast thing that we know later, but again, I like that we can kind of see that with his symbiote form, especially with the giant horns. It makes the X-Men kind of look like, well, for lack of a better term, like demons, like monsters. It definitely gives you the chills when you see it. But considering how the history with symbiotes bonding with people and transforming them it kind of goes, and how it kind of becomes a regular problem, especially with what we see with Spider-Man, it definitely gives you the chills. But at the same time, you also realize the X-Men just got an upgrade, and I love it, because one of the things that I always love seeing too when someone bonds with a symbiote is how it improves them, how it changes them, how it enhances their power, so to speak. And yeah, without giving away too much, the X-Men's powers are augmented in these symbiote forms, and we will be seeing that and the first time we will be seeing that is with Cyclops in the next issue. So I like it. It's awesome. It's really cool. But yeah, on the whole though, issue I think the issue itself is still pretty good. It keeps the plot moving. It's mostly action-based, but I'm okay with it this time because we kind of already got the plot and exposition going on. We still have the story. We still have the characters trying to keep everything moving forward as they gather information. They manage to eventually getting the lead with Hazemancer. Again, the dynamics are still pretty good, especially with Venom being Venom and how he gathers his information. I like the character stuff with Cyclops, as we see more of why he's so determined to save his father. I love how what happens when the group confronts Hazemancer. I love how they still keep the tension going with Killer Thrill, and how she wants to cash in on the bounty on the Starjammers. And then likewise, the final shot of the X-Men bonding with their own symbiotes. It's both chilling and awesome all at the same time. So on the whole, still a pretty good issue. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. Hopefully by Tuesday my voice will be a lot better. And next time we'll actually see how the X-Men utilize those symbiotes and see if they actually manage to make any progress in saving Cyclops' dad. So till then, I hope you have a good Saturday, and as always, take care.